All right, this is going to be kind of a reasonably length, not a very long one today, but the point of it is that I want to make a bridge between what we've been talking, what I've been talking about in the last section. It's not so much the export risk, but the strategic alliances and the organizational change involved. So there's a bridge between making these decisions, entering new markets, trying to find strategic alliances that work for you, and having to manage your people. So just like at the end of the first semester last year, we focused on people management for the last part of this semester, or change management. And what that means basically is that we have to find a way to deal with the problems that come from these mergers, from these adjustments to a new market, and how to deal with staff. So I'm going to start with like some strategic alliance type things, and then I'm going to talk about problems, and then we'll introduce the idea of change management. So there you go. Quick terminology, key terminology. Number one, takeover is another word for acquisition, acquiring. Someone takes over. We have two kinds of takeovers in the old videos. There was a normal kind of nice takeover where you just buy the company and they want to sell to you, and then you have what is called a hostile takeover, which I think I should have made like the term hostile very clear. Hostile is all those takeovers where the people buy shares behind the back of the board of directors, or they try to, the company doesn't really want to be acquired, doesn't want to be bought, but it's a hostile takeover, hostile. Mergers, as we said, is different from a big fish eating a little fish. It's more like a marriage, a combination of two previously separate businesses. You can imagine some of the problems. External growth. Okay, so let's contrast that with internal growth. Internal growth is when you grow the company and you reinvest your profits back into the company, and then you open new branches and you continue to go as far as your income can take you. That's called internal growth. And that can be also called organic growth. In this way, it says growth within the business. That's also to creating new products within the business, so you have your own R&D department. Then you have external growth. So external growth is when you buy someone else outside of your company. Let's say you're in Facebook and you're in competition with, you see that there's a competition for Messenger, which is a Facebook product, I guess. No, wait, Messenger? Messenger's part of Facebook, and WhatsApp's part of Facebook? Well, anyway, everything's part of Facebook. But maybe you're Google and you see, okay, we want to be part of this phone market. So they just decide to buy Line or on one of these Vibers, one of these companies. Instead of trying to reinvent for themselves and try to, okay, let's put our R&D team together and try to reinvent something that's already there, we'll just buy something that has a service that we would like to provide. So that's external growth. You don't actually make your own products, and you grow from, not from inside the business, from outside. Diversification. Diversification, expanding into new markets with new products. It's a growth strategy, diversification. Adding new products always in new markets is more risk, obviously.
Most important is this concept of diversification from Ansell's matrix, which involves the bottom right box, expanding into new markets and new products That's often the case with a takeover, particularly takeovers that result in failure. It's a very risky strategy. We'll come back to diversification in a minute. Just three other terms to highlight before we get into this topic in more detail.
Synergy. So if you have a strategic alliance, merger, acquisition, and you save money by limiting how many staff, or cutting staff, basically cutting staff, because you have staff that do the same things. So whatever or even economies of scale, whatever cost savings that you have, it's called a cost synergy. And if you're able to open new products to new markets and to increase revenue, that would be considered a revenue synergy. So when you go into your merger or your acquisition, you might have that in mind when you start. Like, the point of this is a cost savings. The reason why we're going to merge with this company is because it allows us to meet new customers. Know what you're doing when you're going into the new market. Are you trying to save money and cost, or build business revenue? And then, of course, shareholders, but the shareholder value is, it could be a problem if the shareholders don't want to sell the company. That's true. But it's not, the goal of the company is always to get bigger for shareholders and to increase the value of their shares.
We'll come on to that. It's quite an interesting concept, really useful one for essays. We'll touch on that in a few minutes. Don't forget, as you do your essays, if you're writing an essay about takeovers, a really good way to build depth into your analysis is to make reference, not write whole pages, but make reference to relevant theories. And when it comes to takeovers, two models in particular are very pertinent. One on the left, obviously, the Antos matrix, we've mentioned diversification, which is the bottom right-hand box. Takeovers are essentially an issue of strategic choice. It could well be that if the strategy is market development, bottom left-hand box, the takeover may be one of the best options for achieving and pursuing that strategy. Similarly, the one on the right, the model on the right, which is Porter's generic strategies, you can often link back the motives for the takeover to maybe the objective, the strategy is to be a cost leader, maybe the objective is to be a highly differentiated business. You can often link back the motives of the takeover to Porter.
So these are helpful to understand what's the goal of the company again, or what strategy the company should have. I did talk about this before. Ansof's matrix, I'll just review very quickly. It's comparing existing products and new products, so products that people are already aware of. So if I was going to come into this market and sell hamburgers, people know what hamburgers are already. So if it's an existing product in an existing market, I just try to get market share. I got to battle against all the competition that exists. If I'm a existing market, but it's like a hamburger, but it's not really a hamburger, I've got to find a way to get people to be interested in this product. So let's say, well, I think actually pizza is a better example. For example, people didn't know what pizza was until 10 years ago here so much. They knew it, but they didn't want to try it. So when I come into that market, I need to understand that what I'm trying to do. Like, am I trying to compete with the local people who are already here? No, not really, right? I'm trying to get people interested in the product of pizza. It's good for me. The more people try pizza, it doesn't matter if they try it at my restaurant. I hope they do, but it doesn't matter if they eat at another pizza restaurant. As long as people are eating more pizza, there's room for the market to grow. So I'm trying to get this market to grow. It's an existing product in a new market. I've got to introduce. I've got to take advantage of the size and the potential of the market. So that's the green one, market development. It's a new market with an existing product, which is pizza. So it's an existing market, fast food, with a new product. So I need to create the image of product as being a fast food that people would enjoy, that's alternative. So I'm focused on what it is in its product development, is what is it in its relative similarity to other existing market offerings. So if I'm going to offer an energy drink, right, for example, that's going to be product development. And new markets and new products, I mean, that's just, that's something completely, I'm making a product for the Vietnamese market that I think Vietnamese people would like. So that's the hardest strategy. The other one is Porter. Porter is just talking about the different ways that you can have a competitive advantage. You can have a market where it's like, okay, it says source of competitive advantage. That's this side over here. Sometimes, I guess, your company's source of its competitive advantages is economies of scale. It's bigger, it's cheaper. So if the market is if you've got economies of scale and you're cheaper at producing and you have a broad market, in other words, a mass market, then you just want to make everyone bend to your cheaper prices and be the cost leader. If it's a narrow market and you're able to get some advantage in cost, like in a niche, then you'll focus on that. You'll focus on how to manage that cost. You're not expecting your competitors to be able to compete with you necessarily. Differentiation, leadership. You can go and watch Porter. It's called Porter's Generic Strategies. I don't have to go through the whole thing again, but if your source of differentiation is there, then you've got to be different from the other, manga comic book shops. Have a little bit more expertise. Or if you're in a mass market and you have something that's really cool and different, then you focus on that. And you can usually use premium pricing. It's a little bit like an iPhone. This is the point.
Mobile. Don't forget that with takeovers, what you're really looking at is a fairly crucial business strategic decision. And when it comes to all strategic decisions, a key point to make to the examiner is that strategy is all about choice. And let me explain that briefly by reference to takeovers here. Takeovers are just one alternative. So if we look at the yellow shape there are a variety of different strategic directions a firm can take. Let's say, for example, that the chosen strategy from the board is international expansion. Perhaps expanding into faster growing emerging markets. Perhaps they want to have a presence in China. What are the alternatives? Well, takeovers are one of the alternatives, by and large, but they're not the only alternative. So there's always an option to pursue an organic or internal strategy, launching new products, exporting direct. There's also nearly always an option to do something other than buy another business, perhaps to form some kind of strategic alliance or enter into a joint venture.
Strategic alliance, again, it's used two ways. One is like a very general term for all kinds of business relationships, and also it can refer to what I called before is, what was that? That was kind of about making some kind of, what's the word? Anyway, you would use outsourcing to take part of your business and to have some kind of marketing relationship. You're not just going to work together with another company or become another company or merge or buy another company. You're just going to work with a distributor, or you're going to work with a market research company. It's a functional alliance. Yes, functional alliance. Which is an alternative, right? You keep your integrity of your business. You don't have to mix it with another business, but you get the benefits of working with another company who has expertise.
With a partner, rather than going the whole hog and taking over business in an international market. So it's very important to remember that strategy is all about choice. That takeovers, by and large, it's very rare for a takeover to be forced on the business. By and large, they're an option, an alternative. And therefore, if something is optional, there must be some alternatives. One of the key things to consider is the takeover the best of the options? There is another final concept I just want to introduce because I think it really does enable you to analyse and evaluate takeovers in quite a powerful way, which is a concept called strategic fit.
This is where he starts to talk about change a bit. Strategic fit. Do the goals of your company fit with the goals of the company that you're going to take over? Evaluating, do you guys have the same direction, focus? Do the strengths of your company complement those of the other company? Is it a complement or they clash, I guess?
I'm not even sure you'll find this in the main area of the business textbooks, but if it's not there, it really should be. And the reason for this is that the best way to assess whether a takeover or merger is right for the business is whether or not it fits with the strategic objectives of the business and the capabilities of the business. So, for example, if the objective of the firm is to be a global market leader, the chances are that significant takeovers of significant businesses in important global markets is pretty likely to fit quite closely with the strategy. It's likely to have good strategic fit. If the strategy of the business is to minimise risk, chances are a takeover doesn't fit very well with that strategy because, to a large extent, most takeovers are high-risk transactions. And the beauty of the strategic fit concept is that it links really nicely with the models and some of the other stuff that you may have covered earlier in your course. So, for example, let's take the second one down there, important generic strategies. Let's say your strategy, your chosen strategy is to be a cost leader, to be the lowest cost operator in the market, and the way in which you intend to do that is to be the biggest, to generate significant economies of scale. Now, you identify a takeover of a large competitor, and as a result of that takeover, you can achieve significant cost synergies. Those cost synergies, if they are achieved and sustained, should enable unit costs of the enlarged business to fall, thereby allowing the business to improve its competitive position as a cost leader. So, a takeover of a large competitor that results in real cost synergies will be entirely consistent and a close fit with the strategy. Linking back to Porter. Why do firms undertake takeovers? Well, partly, as we've suggested, it's part of the strategy. And indeed, strategic motives, by and large, are good motives for, firstly, evaluating and secondly, going ahead with the takeover. However, be aware that there are other reasons why takeovers happen.
Motivation. I think I went through this before in the last video. Key strategies for M&A. M&A means mergers and acquisitions. In this area, we can think about, extend the business, new locations, new markets, take part in globalization, keep competitive with the other global competitors that are expanding at the same time. So there are potential, again, we talked about this with globalization. Although in many markets there's a short-term competition increase, as time goes on, those markets usually get swallowed up by bigger, huge players, global players. Extend the business to new markets, change competitive structure that usually, so I'll just go through the terms. Consolidation, that means to bring together bigger parts of market share, which at the same time, of course, might remove competition by buying them. And you might achieve economies of scale by getting bigger, so that would mean that you would be more competitive in that market. Another option, as I said, with like Facebook buying WhatsApp, it's like instead of, or Instagram, why would they need to invent Instagram and waste all that time to build a brand and compete with Instagram when they can just buy Instagram? So they can access the technology that they want. So 3 things to do: extend the market, change competitive structure. That phrase would be really good if you use that in a quiz or a test question. They wanted to change. Okay, so this company could expand into a new market and change the competitive structure by removing competition. I think that's pretty good. Financial motives are either going to be on 2 sides, usually either cost or profit, right? You're either trying to make money or save money. Some examples of takeover motives. These are good. Okay.
And back to some examples. You've always got to have some examples you can use to help support your line analysis. Just to list out a few of them here.
This whole video is pretty good, and it's all about how to answer questions about, just to organize answers for exam questions. I'll just go through this. Kraft and Cadbury. Cadbury, we know they're here. I think they're owned by Mondelez now, that company we saw before. Kraft, big, huge, multinational, millions of kinds of food products. They wanted to use Cadbury for emerging markets, which would include Vietnam. So they had a goal of being able to enter new markets by taking Cadbury. Google, they bought Motorola because they didn't know much about smartphones, and they wanted to have those patents and how to produce them. It didn't really work out. There is no real Google phone, but that's what their goal was. That was their motivation. Tata is a huge company for, I believe, construction equipment. They wanted to get some expertise of another construction company, or construction, like they make digger trucks and all the trucks, basically. So they wanted the distribution, they wanted the brands, they wanted the economies of scale, maybe some products that the JLR could make better. Some banks, they want to get bigger just because it's more assets for them to be able to use. And Facebook and Instagram, basically Facebook neutralized Instagram as a competitor. So that gives you some example of the motivations that some companies have for acquiring. Measures of success. And this is where change gets a little bit weird. At the bottom, share price. Of course, if the share price goes up, that's a measure of success. Revenue is increased, that's a measure of success. The synergies or the economies of scale are achieved, that's success. Customers are maintained and the quality control stays the same. That's a measure of success. And then we get to change management. Staff is going to be nervous about the change. They're pretty nervous because this is often cited as the main human resource management problem of takeovers, because the staff knows that they don't need everybody from both companies anymore. So it starts to affect their performance. What factors influence the success of takeover? The price paid. Okay, so if it's a reasonable, if the price, you don't know if the price, you have a valuation of a price in your mind. Does that make sense or not? Well, you find out, later if you paid too much for it, if it can't bring back the revenue that you invested. How long it takes, and this is part of change management, the speed of integration. The speed of being able to integrate means to be able to put the companies together quickly. Maintenance of key staff. Are you going to be able to keep the key staff once in both companies? So that's also a change management issue. Many companies focus on costs as a way to build short-term shareholder gain, which doesn't really lead all the time to higher long-term success. So, okay, so the profits look. So they tried, their strategic goal was to make cost savings. This cost savings could be done through economies of scale, which would lead to more revenue and probably a higher share price that would be long-term success, have a chance for long-term success. But sometimes companies, they go into a merger with a short-term mentality. We'll just merge two companies and we'll cut half of the staff, we'll cut half of the branches, we'll rename it, but keep the same customers, but just have less branches and save on employees. That's not a long-term strategy. That's just a short-term way to make it look like your profits go up. So shareholders are happy for 1 quarter, 6 months, but after that, if the business doesn't grow or there's loss of quality control because you cut half of your staff, then you might not have long-term success. I don't need to go too far into this. Okay, talk about overvaluation, talk about key problems with takeovers. This is important. Key problems with takeovers include the cost, again, and the disruption of business. So we have 2 issues there. Let me see if I can just line up here, man.
To implement and to achieve the cost synergies. And thirdly, that you allow the 2 organizations.
I don't know why this line is here all the time. I just want to get rid of it. So costs involved with a merger or takeover are not just the cost of buying the business, but it's the cost of the transition, the cost of trying to manage the change, and the disruption. Disruption means interruption. Paying too much. Clash of cultures. If you buy, you have international businesses. Vietnamese company might not accept management from a German company. We're going to talk about that next semester a lot. Culture clash. Culture can mean like a national culture, but it also can mean the management and business culture. Sometimes you have one group of one company that has a very authoritarian, top-down management structure, and you have another company that has teams and flat structures, and they have a lot of creativity and a lot of feedback from employees. So if you start to mix those kind of employees, it might not work. You might lose customers, but the bigger ones are resistance from target employees and management. So if there's resistance to change, which is what the next lessons are going to be about, that's going to be a drawback, and it potentially can make it fail. Mergers and acquisitions actually have a high failure rate. 70% plus destroy shareholder value in the long term. Management is distracted, so because they're not focused on whatever it is they were making or producing before, and they're focused on trying to manage the transition of acquiring the new company, they lose their focus and it affects their business. These ones are failed takeovers. News Corp bought MySpace for £580 million and sold it for $25 million. That was a mistake. I don't know, this Friends Reunited, I don't know. They lost a lot of money there. This bank, RSB and ABN AMRO, they lost $15 billion. the stories of those, but there are tons of failures. And ways to reduce the risk of failure is to do what is called due diligence. Due diligence means to really understand the operation and the system of the other company, which includes things like IT, potential customer info, how the customers will feel about the new company, which means market research. Planning, having an action plan about what you're going to do once you have the new company. Having a plan for the first 100 days. This is what we're going to have to look at in the next section. Clear communication is important. Everyone needs to know, all the staff need to know why it is that we're doing it. What is the goal? Is it, if you're just telling them it's a cost strategy, a savings, then they're going to see themselves as being potentially fired. So it's a bit of a danger for the staff to feel that way. Particularly employees here is what it says. So communication is very important. Everyone should understand what the point of the merger or acquisition is. And when you have the new target business or the acquisition that you acquire, that you recognize, and if you want it to be smooth in transition, is to recognize what is expected and the actual culture of the other business. So having some respect doesn't always happen. So that can lead to a clash too. So that was just a way to kind of get you thinking about what's going to happen. These are good questions at the end, the essay questions. I'm not going to give them yet until we talk about change management, but it was just a preview today and a transition. So everybody have a great day, short one.